Thank you, Jess. I think that is now recording. Thank you so much for reminding me. Yes, so our topic is anxiety, and my position is that we can relate to our anxiety with practical tools. And I'm going to share some of those with you this lunchtime. So I just wanted to start to position my stance on this, to introduce you to that. And this quote is from a fellow called Dr. Eric Goodman, who's a specialist in anxiety. And he's based in California. And I've had the good fortune to chat with him for my podcast. But the way he looks at anxiety, I think, is really interesting. And I think it's really insightful and useful. He says, if we understand that our anxiety is neither a demon nor a tormentor, but it's a bodyguard. Our anxiety is something that's always working to try and help us. But it just is not designed for the world that it suddenly finds us in. And so it's misperceiving threats all the time. And I love this because Eric is describing our anxiety as kind of a glitchy bodyguard. It thinks it's being helpful. It's doing what it was designed to do in our mind. Our mind is doing exactly what it was designed to do, to keep us safe. But it's misperceiving those threats all the time. So before I go any further, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Ross McIntosh. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I specialize in the cultivation of skills for psychological well-being and psychological flexibility in adults in the workplace, and also adults in the rest of their lives, because I don't believe you can separate us at work with us and the rest of your lives. I was asked to collaborate with Bristol City Council and educational psychology team on these webinars for teachers initially. And we rolled those out earlier this year, and people found them really useful. We got some great feedback. So we thought, why not offer some of these to parents as well? So here we are. I use this type of behavioral science with a lot in the NHS, a lot with teachers, civil service, and other populations such as professional ballet dancers. The one thing they all have in common, they are humans in the workplace and living their lives. Jess, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm an assistant educational psychologist working at Bristol City Council. So yeah, supported Ross with the staff wellbeing webinars and then also helping with these webinars. It's really good to see everyone here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jess. And Jess will be keeping an eye on the chat, as well as supporting me in designing these. Jess will be keeping an eye on the chat and also running a poll, because we'd like to check in with you. So I've got a question for you out there, and this is an anonymous poll. And my question is, but before I come to my question, let me just say that I have some expertise in sharing behavioral science and skills with people in hopefully a way that's accessible and useful and perhaps even fun, but you can be the judge of that. But I'm not an expert in being you or living your life with the challenges that you face. So I'd invite you to, as we share these skills, just think about how they could apply in your own lives. I'll be inviting you to have a go yourselves at some of the exercises. So my question is, how anxious are you feeling today? And by the wonders of technology and Jess, you should find an anxiety webinar poll pop up on your screen. And you'll see we're asking the question, how anxious are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? Where 1 is not anxious at all and 10 is very anxious. And just honestly answer. This is anonymous, so you just need to click on one of those options. Just give you a few moments to reflect on that. As I say, it's anonymous, and just want to get a feel for the room, if you like. Just give a few moments more for you to select your option. Okay, and now what will happen is, as if by magic, we get your outcome, and I can see there's a peak at 7. There's 5% of you at a 9 in terms of anxiety. There's also 5% at about 1. And we've almost got a kind of normal, semi-normal distribution there for those stats geeks out there. But you can see there's people with sort of levels of 3 or 4, that's 30% of you. Levels of 8 and 9, that's about 13%. So there's a good spread there. And the point of doing that is to say that, firstly, anxiety is something that can connect us all. It's what our brains are good at and how our brains have evolved. And I'd suggest that our anxiety can vary throughout the day. It can be different on different days. You may find that you're a kind of more anxious person. I certainly am. I'd go to the level of that I'm a catastrophizer, quite skilled in that. But I've learnt these skills where I can relate to my old catastrophic mind in different ways. And I want to share some of those with you today, because what that allows me to do when I practice these skills and techniques, it allows me to recognize I have a choice. I can get tangled up with my anxious mind, or I can actually just start taking steps towards what would be useful for me. So a kind of supplementary question to that is this. If you're willing, in the chat, share one word to reflect where your anxious mind is taking you to today. I'll start while you, if you're willing to, just type in the chat box. Where is my anxious mind taking me to? My anxious mind today is primarily with my dad. I've just come back from a week with my dad in the northeast of England. He lives alone and he's doing incredibly well. He's 86 and he's also terribly, terribly lonely. And I feel, having left him yesterday, I feel that sort of pull and that all sorts of emotions around that. So my anxious mind is kind of worried about him and also worried about what I've got on in work over this week. So it can pull me in different directions, my anxious mind.
So we've got quite a range of responses. So going into the office tomorrow, school holiday cover, weight, work, coping with a new job, son has dyslexia, COVID, feeling tired, 3 members of family in hospital and having chemo, family, relationships, children, lots of, quite a few work, juggling kids' work and not feeling good enough, son's behavior, pain management, relationships, general life overwhelm, health.
Crikey.
And just general time and fitting everything in.
Thanks for sharing, folks. And crikey, look where our anxious minds can take us. From going into the office to starting a new job to having a son with dyslexia, 3 members of family in hospital. You see, there's things behind everyone. We may present as kind of okay, but our anxious minds can be working away. Not feeling good enough, juggling kids, general life overwhelm, depression, and COVID, crikey. What everyone has been through over the last months is unprecedented. And I just wanted to talk a little bit. Well, first of all, thank you again for sharing that and being open, because I think that anxiety can connect us as human beings. It's part of what our brains are designed to do. And what I want to show you is ways we can relate to it in a different way. But let's have a little start to explore what our minds are up to. So there's part of our brain I call our cave dweller mind. And this is the part of our brain that's evolved to keep us safe. It's on the lookout for danger and threat. And that's been on fire for many of us. That's been on fire since March last year. And that can be pretty exhausting. And then we have another bit of our mind. I should say I'm not a neuroscientist or a brain specialist, so excuse my sort of layman's summary here. So we've got our frontal lobe, which allows us to make decisions, analyze, work, interact with colleagues and family. And that has a limited battery life. And because of all the other stuff going on, that battery is depleting more rapidly. So we need to take time to recharge that battery. It's one of the first things I want to present to you, because as it depletes more rapidly, we might find ourselves showing up as a person that we're not that proud of. Like, I can find myself getting more irritable and snappy, perhaps earlier in the day than I might usually. And that's because of stuff going on in my brain. So what do I want to cover with you for the rest of this webinar to make it as practical as possible for you? I want to have a look at why our minds do this. Why do our minds get anxious? Why do they generate anxiety? I'd like to look at some strategies that don't work very well, which might seem very, very familiar. And the primary thing I want to do is present you with some practical skills to help us relate to that anxiety. So that's what I've got in mind. Please do keep typing in the chat with questions and your experience of the exercises if you want to join in. And yeah, I think without further ado, I will start talking about why our minds do this. I've already given a hint about our cave dweller mind being on fire. So when we lived in caves, you and me, our minds were generating loads of content, and that content was designed to keep us safe, to make sure we didn't get killed. These were primitive times. And they generate thoughts such as, watch out, there might be a lion behind that rock. Or, watch out, last week there was a bear in those woods. So our mind was constantly flagging risks, potential danger, and things that might go wrong. Our mind also had a couple of other functions, which I'll share for the sake of completeness, just so you get the complete picture of our cave dweller brain. One of the things our mind was doing was comparing ourselves with other people. That need to fit in with the group. Because if we didn't fit in with the group, the lion would eat me. So if I'm in a cave with Jess, my colleague here, and I realized that Jess is really knocking it out the park in terms of being a member of this cave. She's a good hunter, she's a good gatherer, she's got loads of like furs and food and stuff. And I feel myself sadly lacking when I compare myself to Jess. And yeah, and if other people notice that, then I might get chucked out the cave. The other things our mind encourages us to do, our cave dweller mind, is to get more. We need more of stuff. I need more food, more water, better weapons. If I have these, maybe I can set up my own cave. And the interesting thing is that these cave dweller people, if you accept this proposition, these cave dweller people, we've descended from them because the really cautious ones survived. The ones that went skipping out of the cave and just to explore on their own probably got eaten by the lion or mauled by the bear and didn't survive. So our mind is doing exactly the same as is set out here in totally different circumstances now. It's flagging dangers. It's comparing us, and the groups it compares us with are far larger than a cave. We can compare ourselves with other parents, other families. We compare ourselves with other people's social media and their carefully curated perfect lives. And we can find ourselves lacking it. We haven't even got the ingredients for banana bread, never mind making banana bread. And we haven't learned 7 languages or written a book over lockdown. And that's okay, but our brain will naturally compare ourselves with others. And we can find the urge to get more. Things will be better when I have this or that. So it's not surprising our brain does that, but just becoming more aware of it can be really helpful, and just pressing pause. Part of these webinars, there's a series of 3, this is one of 3, they're designed to kind of press pause and explore what our minds are up to. Because what our minds are doing is they're generating thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations, and urges, things like that, all the time. And sometimes they're helpful or useful, and sometimes they're not so useful. And typically, we'll focus more on that sort of non-useful stuff, the negative stuff perhaps. And we'll get captivated by that. We might try and fight with it. And that's what our minds do. So it's part of being a human. So these techniques I've got are designed to help us just kind of press pause and notice what's going on. Because there's one fundamental thing that our minds hate. And that's this: uncertainty. Our minds hate uncertainty. Oh my goodness, we've had uncertainty over the last few months, and we've still got uncertainty, and it's exhausting. Our minds will be perhaps looking at different scenarios or imagining the worst if you're anything like me. Our minds would prefer anything to not knowing what's going to happen, which is kind of exhausting. I'm sure you might recognize that exhaustion over the pandemic in juggling your life and the demands on your life, being a parent or a carer of children, added to many other complexities going on for you. And the thing is, what we can do is we can try some strategies. We can often see anxiety as something to be avoided or controlled. And the trouble is, we can't control or avoid anxiety. That's my firm position. And the evidence supports me. We can often say to ourselves, or even each other, don't worry, no need to feel anxious. And that's about as helpful as saying, don't think about a purple sheep. Whatever you do, do not think about a purple sheep, because what happens then is most likely something like that. Or perhaps that's more your style of purple sheep. But you get what I mean. The mind is, as in that quote from Eric Goodman at the beginning, the mind is doing what it's designed to do to protect us, but it's just not ready for the environment in which it finds ourselves. And it's misperceiving threat all the time. It's like that glitchy bodyguard. So what I've got are a set of skills to help us relate to our anxious minds. And here they are. I've got 4 techniques. And what I'd really love is, if you want to have a go, if you feel the time is right for you, the invitation is for you to join me in playing with these skills. Join me in just reflecting on these, seeing how these could perhaps be useful in your own life. And what we're trying to do with all of these skills is this. If you have a look at me just on the video, if you can see that, imagine that hand is me, and that hand is my anxious mind. Okay, so that's me and my anxious mind. Sometimes we can be like this, fused tightly with our anxious mind, treating everything it generates as 100% true and 100% worthy of our full attention. And when we're treating it as true and worthy of our attention, in my game, we call this fused. I am fused with my anxious mind. I'm looking at everything in life through the lens of that anxiety. See, and the more I try and struggle with it, the anxious mind, the tighter that bond gets. So what we're looking to do with these techniques and these skills is this: we're looking to just separate ourselves from our anxious mind. And you see there where my thumbs are wiggling, that space between us and our anxious mind, that space there where my thumbs are wiggling is some of the healthiest psychological space we can have as a human being. And that's what these skills that I'm about to share with you, That's what these are all designed to do. And they're all based in evidence. They're shown to work. Some people might find one or other of these more helpful than others. So if you're willing to, I invite you to join in with me and let me know what you think as we go along. So the first one is writing it down. But before we do that, I want to share with you a metaphor that we can use to represent our minds. And this will maybe help us get some perspective on those thoughts that our mind is generating. So I'm going to talk you through this metaphor. So the idea of this is that I can drive my bus of life in any direction I choose. And hopefully I can drive my bus and do things and take it on a route that has purpose and meaning for me. And the moment I start up the ignition and start moving, there's lots and lots of chatter starts up behind me. Lots and lots of chatter in my ears. And they are like my passengers. They are my thoughts. And that chatter is representing my thoughts to varying degrees of helpfulness. And these passengers are really clever. They know what I'm thinking. They know I'm thinking of doing something different or new. And so some of those passengers are saying, hey, Ross, I can see you're thinking of doing something new in life, driving your bus in a slightly different direction. And we applaud you for that. We think you are great. We're big fans of you as a bus driver. And we think you've got all the skills and strengths to make this work. And we think it's going to go really well. And you'll end up in a really, really good, positive place. So that's what some of my passengers are saying. Others are a bit less pleasant. They're saying, Ross, oh, these seats on your bus, they're pretty blooming uncomfortable. And we too can see you're thinking of adjusting the direction of the bus and going on a new route. Well, what we say is, don't bother with that. Let's just stay on that comfortable route, the circular route round and round the city. Let's just keep going round and round the city, because we know deep down in your heart, that's where you feel safe and comfortable. And you don't need to do this new stuff or embark upon something slightly different. It's scary. You might see other bus drivers doing it, but you don't need to. You just stay where it's safe and comfortable and keep going round and round and round. And then some other of my passengers, they are just awful. They're saying, Ross, we think you're a really shit driver. Have you even got a license for this vehicle? Because you wouldn't know it the way you drive. And we too can see you're thinking of going down a new route in your life. And really, is that what you think you should do? Because we know what will happen. We know there'll be a series of unfortunate events ending in utter catastrophe. And we've got all that chatter going on at once. I like this metaphor personally. I don't know how it resonates for you. Maybe you want to share in the chat if this resonates with you, but this is what it's like for me. I don't think I'm that unusual. And I've shared this with many, many people. And what I'd like to suggest is this is what it's like being a human. There's lots of content that our minds generate, and a lot of that can be anxiety provoking or make us feel anxious. And the thing is, we tend to pay more attention to those negative passengers who are telling us we're a bit rubbish, or who are saying, you're no good, or it won't work, or put that off till tomorrow, mate. So by shining a light on these passengers, it can be really helpful because we can realize that they're doing a job on us. They're doing a job on us, as my boss at uni would say. He's from Essex. And he would say, these passengers can really do a job on us and stop us doing things that are important to us or keeping us stuck in a rut. So that's the way we talk about this.
Ross, someone said if we are existing in a world which has been designed so far away from our origins and pretty quickly too, maybe our collective anxiety is actually a call to action. I mean to say, how could it be a tool?
Yeah, yeah. Really, really interesting point. And maybe recognizing that anxiety, sharing it with others, and because I don't think we talk about it enough, and how can we harness that energy from that anxiety to perhaps move our collective bus towards things that might be useful for ourselves, our society, or wider population. Lovely point. Thank you.
And someone else said, I would like to ask, please, how to deal with anxiety to children.
Great question. And so two parts to that answer. Thank you for asking. I'm not a specialist in educational psychology. My speciality is in working with adults. And you might like to share some of these techniques and skills with your children. I think the most powerful thing could be is if you're kind of role modeling these for your children, talking about your own anxiety and how you relate to it. That could be a really, really powerful thing. Anything else in the chat there, Jess?
Someone else said the constant noisy chatter of anxiety steals our chance for our minds to have peacefulness and calm in our minds.
Wow. Yeah. We can get really, I absolutely agree. It can be quite noisy, that chatter. So I think I'm going to dive in and share with you some of those techniques that you might like to practice along with me. So thank you for your contributions so far, folks. It's really great to have you involved and feeding back and reflecting. I love it. So the first technique is writing it down. So maybe if you've got a bit of paper handy, just imagine what your familiar, regular, everyday passengers are saying and write it down. I'm going to share with you some of mine to give you an example of how this could work. Don't worry that you haven't got this little illustration. It works just as well, just writing it down if you're willing to. So here are some of mine. I'm worried about ... As I said earlier, what's primarily on my worry list today? My anxious mind, worried about my dad up in the Northeast, and I'm worried about the work I've got on this week, deadlines. Could feel a bit overwhelmed at times, that sense of, could feel it in my body as well, that sense of overwhelm. I can also have this feeling, I don't know whether this resonates with anyone, I'm going to be discovered. And I don't mean in a good way. I don't mean like I'm going to be discovered as the next new singing sensation, like X Factor. I mean, I'm going to be discovered for the fraud and the charlatan that I am. That kind of pops up from now, and my passenger's telling me that. What else? Got a few more, I think. So, oh, here's a good one. I'm not clever enough. Yeah, imagine if that's chattering in my ear. I'm not clever enough. What might I choose not to do that I'm offered? If I'm really engaged with that passenger, really believing it as 100% true. This is one I've had for many, many years. What will the neighbors say? Yeah, we're always worried about what other people think of me. And another one, I mentioned urges too. Go on, have another bag of crisps. Crisps are my downfall. And having another bag isn't what I always want to do, because it can quickly lead to another bag. They're so good. Salt and vinegar, as you ask. So I invite you to have a go. Don't choose your most profound, deep, really enormous unhelpful thoughts, choose those everyday ones, a bit like the ones perhaps on the screen here. And if you're willing to play and explore, write them down. I'm just going to leave a pause. If you've got any questions, do pop them in the chat. But I'll leave a pause just for you to write some stuff down. A couple of minutes. Okay, folks, sorry to interrupt if you're still jotting some of your own unhelpful thoughts down. But I'm curious, is anyone willing to feed back on, I'm not asking you to share your unhelpful thoughts, you're very welcome to if you want. And I'm also interested in what's it like to see them out there on a page. Does it change anything for you? Did you find that once you started writing down some of your unhelpful thoughts, you kind of couldn't stop? Anything change for you when you see them out there on the page for good or for not so good? Any reflections, folks?
Someone said they feel overwhelmed by all the thoughts that it will lead one into the other like a train.
Yeah. Sometimes people do say, oh, crikey, never knew all this was in my head. This feels a bit uncomfortable. And I get that because I normally have loads. This is only a sample of mine. And just seeing them out there on the page, I'm not doing that, inviting you to write these down to be cruel. I'm asking you to write these down so we can start to have a go at changing our relationship with these. Some people find that when they see them out there on the page, it maybe lessens their impact a little bit. Sometimes people say to me, they feel a bit daft when they see them out there on the page. They seem a bit less powerful. But other people, as someone has already said, feels a bit intense. But we don't need to avoid them or try and move away from them, is my suggestion. They're just words out there on a page.
Someone said they used to write down in the past and then destroy the paper. It felt good to rip or burn that bit of paper.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's certainly an approach. And if that works for you, I'd say go for it.
Someone else said that some of the ones they wrote down sounded really childish.
Now that's interesting. Because some of these thoughts have been around a long time, I would say. Some of these, I can look at some of these and think, crikey, this has been around since I was at school. I'm not clever enough. My aforementioned boss at uni, he's got one that says, I might get told off. Now he's a grown-ass man, but that sounds quite childlike, doesn't it? So these thoughts have been with us for a long time, sometimes. Sometimes see how you relate to this. Sometimes they've even been handed down to us. We've learned them from our parents or carers. For instance, that "what will the neighbours say" is one I definitely got from my mum. I'm not criticizing my dear mum. I'm just saying that definitely know where I got that from. Any other insights on the chat there, Jess?
Yeah, someone else says that they sometimes find that until they write something down, my mind keeps worrying at it and trying to solve it. But once it's written down, it feels more like something I can put to rest.
Ooh, I like that. I like the picture you paint for me there is that these things can just bounce around our minds and keep popping up. Whereas if I write it down, it helps me get more of a handle on it, perhaps. It's kind of paraphrasing, but that's what I got from that comment. Thank you so much.
And just a couple of people said that some of the things are sort of beyond their control. And some things they feel anxious about, but have little control over.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Thank you. Because by writing them down, we can help to realize what we have control over. Because we might not have control over global policy on climate change. Probably I'd hazard a guess that no one on this call has that control. Yet we still might be anxious. So what small steps could we take? By writing it down, we can get more of a handle on it and realize what steps we could take in our own sphere of what we can influence and control. Thanks so much, folks, for sharing. So this is our first technique, this idea that if we write stuff down, it can help to start, just shine a light on it and help us perhaps begin to change our relationship with it. Some people felt it was a bit intense to write them down. And if we could just sit with them and be with them, knowing that these words on a page can't harm us, maybe just take a breath as we look at them. And sometimes, as someone else said, feels a bit childish seeing them out there. Okay, thanks for your feedback, folks. So let's carry on. Let's go on to technique 2. Giving the mind a playful nickname. Now let me try and explain what I mean by this. And I've got 3 examples to share with you. And here we go. Hopefully you'll get what I mean once I've shared a few. So the idea behind this is that we know we've got these anxious minds that can misperceive threat all the time. So if we can catch our minds in flight and give it a playful nickname, that's something that can be quite useful for us. So here's one. This is from a colleague of mine in Bristol, as it happens. And she would talk about going to maybe a meeting at work or a social event or anything where she's meeting a group of people, maybe some people she knows or some people who are new to her. And she'll go to this meeting or maybe social event and she'll have a nice time or a productive meeting, and then she'll leave and perhaps start traveling back home. And that's when Terry, the TripAdvisor critic, pipes up. Her mind will start to generate stuff like, oh, I can't believe what you said to your old friend Jess at that meeting. I think she was quite hurt by what you said. And those new people you met, I think that sort of joke you told, they just thought you were a bit weird. And I think you showed yourself up, really. Or similarly at a meeting, did you notice when you made your contribution that everyone went quiet and just went, moving on? They all think you're a bit stupid. So Terry, the TripAdvisor critic, kicks in with a very critical turn of phrase. And we can really get hooked into those reviews from Terry. But by giving it our minds a little playful nickname, it can again just help us get some distance between ourselves and that anxious mind. And the reason we say playful is it's the mind is doing what it's designed to do. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not that helpful to us. So here's another one. Head of drama. This is my own label for my mind. My mind can take an everyday occurrence to utter catastrophe in a matter of nanoseconds. And it does it all the time, does it throughout the day. And when I can catch it in flight, thinking, oh, here we go. If I can go, oh, thank you, mind. Thanks for that. I'm going to recognize that's my head of drama talking and just concentrate on something else that's useful to me at this time. I really want to focus on this presentation or this document. So it just helps me not get tangled up or go on that roller coaster with my head of drama. And then the final one is from my boss at uni. He calls his mind the caution calculator. So say, remember in the olden days when we could book to go to the theatre, which I think is a more or less coming back gently. So he would sit down and start to book some theatre tickets for him and his wife as a treat. And then he'd think, oh, let's get a meal in beforehand as well. That would be nice. And then his caution calculator kicks in going, oh, well, if you're late for the meal and they're quite slow in their service of the meal, then you might have to sort of wolf everything down and not enjoy it. And then you'll have to dash to the theatre. And if you're late, they might not let you in, or everyone will look at you when you come into the theatre, and you'll probably have a big row on the way. So the caution calculator kicks in and he steps away from his laptop and doesn't book anything. So you see how our minds can hijack our behavior. Well, this technique is just designed to give us that playful nickname, to recognize what our minds are up to. You might look at the previous page or where you've written down some of your unhelpful thoughts and see a theme there, or a thing your mind does. So come up with your own if you want to have a go. If you want to share it, that's all well and good too. I'd love to hear some examples of what you could call your anxious mind. Because the idea is it just gives us that space and helps us notice that we have a choice about what we do next. We can get tangled up in that anxiety, or we can just notice that space, notice what our mind is generating for what it is. Anyone got any thoughts there that what they could call their mind? Can be more of a sort of slow burner, this one, but let's just check in to see if we've got any examples or questions.
Someone said Miss Trunchbull, always criticizing.
Oh, lovely. Miss Trunchbull, always criticizing. Yes. And if you can notice when Miss T is in the driving seat, it's quite exhausting. And you can get tangled up with her criticism and her berating you. But just by saying, oh, there you are again, Miss Trunchbull. Thanks for that, but I'm going to actually choose to do this. So you get, hopefully that sort of illustrates how this could work. And the more you practice it, the more you start to alter those habits, because Miss Trunchbull is someone that's possibly been with us a while, possibly many, many years. So we're quite used to her, and she can do a job on us and criticize us all the time. So just keep calling her out, keep calling her out, and gradually we can start to sort of impact upon our habits.
Someone else said Mr. Strategist, who always urges caution.
Oh, I like it. I might nick some of these. That's great. Mr. Strategist, always urging caution. Love that. So come up with one that, if you want to play with this technique, come up with one that resonates for you. That'd be great.
Oh, one more. Judge Judson and Pauline Pressure.
Oh, is that 2 for the price of 1?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Judge Judson and Pauline Pressure. Really, really love it. Thank you. Very creative. And you see, it's playful. We're not criticizing our mind because it's doing what it's designed to do. Thanks, folks. Thanks for sharing. Okay, got 2 more techniques to share. And where are we? Number 3, This is one you can try with a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. So take one of your everyday unhelpful thoughts, and over on the right-hand side of a piece of paper, just write it down. So I've written, I'm not clever enough, but you write down your own. So I'm not clever enough is one of my very familiar unhelpful thoughts. Once you've written it down, just have a look at it out there on the page and think about the impact that can have when you're tangled up with it, when you believe that's 100% true and 100% worthy of your attention. What's that like? What might you do next? Or what might you not do next? And here's the technique. Let me share it with you. Here's the technique. Put a phrase in front of this and try writing this on your bit of paper. I'm having the thought that I'm not clever enough. I'm having the thought that, and your own unhelpful thought. Just try writing that down and have a look at that out there on the page. What's that like? Does that change your relationship at all? Or does it help you get a different perspective on that thought? Any views? Or does it no different? If you wouldn't mind sharing any reflections, that would be great. What do you think we're doing with our thought here by putting this phrase in front of it? I'm having the thought that I'm not clever enough.
Someone said it takes the sting out of the phrase.
Nice. Takes the sting out of it. I love that. Something that I love that because it's very kind of emotive. The sting can hurt us and travel around our whole body, that sting.
And someone else says it feels like it's something you can control rather than an incontrovertible fact. Don't know if I said that right.
I think you did a valiant job there, Jess. Yeah, thank you. I agree. And any others?
It feels I'm observing it, not feeling it so intensely.
Wonderful. Observing it, not feeling so intensely. Even just this simple phrase, I'm having the thought that I'm not clever enough. Kind of, I've done this many times, but it just kind of feels like it gives me more breathing space. And we could go one step further. We could try this on your bit of paper too. I noticed that I'm having the thought that I'm not clever enough. Now that might not be the most elegant sentence in the world, but it can do that function. It can help us get that distance between ourselves and our anxious minds, that space there. Any other reflections, folks? I noticed that I'm having the thought that I'm not clever enough. It gives me space to breathe when I look at that. Don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, someone else said it shows that it's essentially just a thought.
Whoa, yeah, absolutely.
And it's fleeting and will go.
I love that, fleeting, yes. And we can choose whether we get tangled up in it, believe it, or whether we think, oh, I might do something else. Thank you so much for sharing, folks.
Someone else said, it makes me feel I need or have to solve the problem. Writing it down feels like it's now a task or something to do.
Okay, thank you. Which takes me, if I may, beautifully into the next one, which is this. Because I don't know about you, but quite often when I have the thought like, I'm not clever enough, I can ask myself, is it true? And then I can get caught up in thinking about all those times I've been stupid. Oh, and there's many, many examples. And what does that lead to? It leads to me feeling more anxious. It kind of reinforces that thought of I'm not clever enough. Whereas here's the final technique, folks. Rather than thinking about, is it true? Which isn't very helpful. This gets me stuck in that loop. Try this question. Is it helpful? And you might like to try this in your in your life. In your life, when you leave this webinar, when you go about your day-to-day existence, thinking about, is that helpful? I'm not clever enough. I love this because it just really helps me pop that thought and realize that actually that's not helpful, and it frees me up to do this. What could I do right now that's important for me? Rather than getting tangled up in that loop, is it helpful? Kind of liberates me. So you might want to try that as well. And just to reiterate, you will get a copy of these slides. So you can practice these with yourself or share them with your family too. That might be something you want to do. So I need to start bringing this to close, folks, but I want to share with you some resources. Just a quick recap first. We've had a look, we've checked in with you, checked in on your level of anxiety today. We've checked why our minds do this. Going back to our cave dweller days, we've looked at some strategies that don't work very well, and we've looked at 4 practical skills. Just wanted to remind you before I present you with the resources that there are 2 other webinars in this series, self-care and noticing. And when you get the slides, you'll find the link to view them and book them on the slides. And what we'd love, if you're willing, is a bit of feedback on how you found this last almost an hour. If you're willing, what will happen now is there will be, as if by magic, well, magic that's known as Jess, there'll be a link appears in the chat box. If you're willing to, we'd love to get your feedback. And if you want to follow that link, it'll just ask you a couple of questions as to how you found this, and we'd really value that. So I'll just pause for a moment to allow you to complete that if you want, before I share the resources. Thank you. Thank you so much if you've had a go at filling in the feedback. And if you're watching this on a recording, you won't have access to that link. But thank you for watching anyway. Okay, so resources. Got some great video from Headspace on dealing with anxiety. Some free meditations for adults and children from an app called Buddhify. There's some really great stuff there. I've added some stuff from my own podcast about how I can get tangled up in the drama of my own mind and not notice the real world. I start missing out on stuff. Another episode about getting perspective and recognizing that different people are experiencing different things. So you might like to check them out. And other short episodes are keeping sight. How can we keep sight of the things that give us meaning in our lives? And an interview with that chap, Eric Goodman, the anxiety specialist from California. And he wrote this brilliant book called Your Anxiety Beast and You, a compassionate guide to living in an increasingly anxious world. So folks, thank you so much for joining me. I want to finish on the quote I started with, just as a reflection to launch you off into the rest of your days. If we understand that our anxiety is neither demon nor tormentor, but it's a bodyguard. Our anxiety is something that's always working to try to help us, but it's just not designed for the world that it suddenly finds us in. And so it's misperceiving threats all the time. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and Jess. Thank you to Jess for your brilliant support and guidance. Thank you for all your reflections and your energy to everyone out there who's joined us. We really, really appreciate it. We hope you found this useful. And remember, there are 2 more that you could sign up to. And tell your friends. Tell your friends if you found this useful, hopefully. And thank you so much. And I hope to see you again soon. Really, really appreciate your time. I'll say good afternoon to you all. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Stop. You can stop the recording now, Ross. Don't forget.
That's such a good point, Jess. Thank you. Let me just...